Everyone, thank you for joining us. I'm Louis Baumier, the Executive Director of the Institut de l'Énergie Trottier at Polytechnique Montréal. On my name and on behalf of Natural Resources Canada, I want to thank you for joining us this afternoon. Just say a few words about this initiative. The Energy Modeling Initiative is a Natural Resources Canada funded initiative that has started from more than a year and a half now, with of course, the main objective of fostering dialogue between the modeling community, with the goal of establishing a network of modelers that ideally would be organized into some sort of a platform that would ease the exchange of information and resources, and hopefully better serve the policymakers and decision makers and other stakeholders involved in the decarbonization of our economy. Before we start with today's presentation, just a few housekeeping rules. Well, the webinar shouldn't last for more than 1 hour, including the Q&A period. It is recorded, and the slides will be made available with the recording in the days after this webinar. Please, during the presentation, keep your microphone on mute. If you have any question or comments, post them into the chat box, especially today, since the presenters will be asking for your feedback on their project. You are welcome to use this chat box to post any of your comments. And during the Q&A period, please raise your hand prior to asking a question. Okay, now with our presentation, we have I'm happy to introduce to you the two presenters of today, well, the presenter and one responsible for the demonstration. First is Simon Préfontaine. Simon is the Senior Economist Manager responsible for data and statistics at Natural Resources Canada Energy and Economic Analysis Division. With degrees in economics from Bishop University in Carleton, Simon has worked in NRCan's energy sector for over 6 years now, focusing on energy information and project fiscal analysis. His previous experience at Statistics Canada helps foster strong collaboration on various data and research projects. The other presenter for today is Kevin Caron. He's a market analyst at the Canadian Energy Regulators, where he conducts research on energy systems. Holder of a master's degree in applied economics from HEC Montréal, most of his work revolves around the electricity sector and Canada's energy infrastructure. He is the main analyst behind the real-time electricity data dashboard that will be presented today, a bit later today. So without further ado, I will give the control to Simon. So please, Simon, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Louis. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Great. Okay. Thank you for that kind introduction, and also thank you very much just for the opportunity to present to you all on this topic. This really is quite a large and important community, and I really consider this group to be the largest segment of potential users of this type of information and data that we're looking to make available in the future. As you can see, we've called this project Real-Time Electricity Data. And as I said, we'll be walking through and giving you an update of what we've been doing, working on in the last year and a half or so, and what the vision is. So here's just really briefly of an agenda. I'll start with a brief introduction, and we're going to spend most of the time on project background, explaining to you what this is all about, who's involved, and really like why we're doing it, part of the early development work that was done, what we're up to right now, and then we'll follow with a demonstration of a prototype that you mentioned that Kevin will deliver, and then really I'm really looking forward to hearing the community's feedback. This is, like I said, an important potential user group, and we want to build something that's going to respond to your needs. And so I see this as being a really important part of the discussion and really look forward to it. So moving on to the introduction. You did a lot of the work for me. Thank you very much. Yeah, so I'm with Natural Resources Canada in the low carbon energy sector, the Economic Analysis Division. As you noted, I'm a manager responsible primarily for data and statistics. So our group puts things out, like the Energy Fact Book on an annual basis. We report on Canada's energy balances to the International Energy Agency. And because of this data-centric role that we play within the department and within the energy sectors, we're often the place that people go to when they're looking for a certain type of statistics, certain type of information. We were also involved more recently in development work for the Canadian Centre for Energy Information. And leading up to the launch, we did conduct a bit of a data scoping exercise on all subjects relating to energy, including electricity. And by interacting with stakeholders interested in all types of energy statistics, one of the data gaps that was identified for electricity was availability of more granular type of electricity information, high frequency type of electricity information. And so with these interactions, it became clear that that this was a gap, and to try and move forward in addressing it, our low carbon energy sector decided to apply to the Innovation Fund at Natural Resources Canada. This is a small program that sets aside seed funding. It's nothing, we're not talking about large amounts of money here, but just to help get certain projects that demonstrate the potential for using innovative methods to just help them get started. And so we applied to NRCan's Innovation Fund, and we received a bit of funding to support this work, trying to address this data gap. And going forward, that resulted in the creation of a project team to work at this and try to make it a reality and do what we need to do. And so within Natural Resources Canada, that involved working closely with our policy experts in the electricity resources branch, also within low carbon energy sector, but also with other groups, primarily CanMet Energy, who I see, who, like, for me throughout this whole time, have represented essentially part of the segment of future users, like the researchers who need this information. And so getting their insights in this process has been really, really helpful. Outside of NRCan, and from really early on in this project, we've been working very closely with the Canada Energy Regulator. They've shown great enthusiasm in wanting to tackle this data gap with us, and the technical capacity as well to develop what we're calling like our demonstration dashboard, prototype dashboard, and there will be more on that later on in the presentation, including a demonstration by Kevin. And more recently, we've been working with Statistics Canada as we look to move from a development and demonstration phase to something a little bit more formalized and evaluating the potential to put a system in place. Now, I did go over the goals of today's session, but like I said, the goal really is to inform the EMI community on work done to date. I also want to talk about the future vision for this project, and really, I'm really looking forward to getting feedback and commentary from the community. Let's see here. Okay. So project background. Our objective is to deliver real-time, in quotes, real-time high-frequency electric system data by province in a single access point that's available publicly, and would include indicators on demand, system load, maybe some load forecasts, as well as generation and trade. But obviously we'd like the detail generation by energy source, whether it's renewable or wherever it's coming from, and interchange between jurisdictions, as well as pricing. that's what we're after, really. And I put real time in quotes because, you know, and some provinces already make this type of information available. Some make it available at 5-minute intervals, which is amazing. Others is more on an hourly basis. And so when we say real time, you know, there's always a delay there, and we're going to have to assess what the optimal timeliness is with considering several factors. But really, what I've understood as being the most value is the high frequency element of this. And so whether it's ultra timely or not, the high frequency is of course very, very important. And so again, we're looking at most likely an hour, but depending on what's possible, we'll also have to evaluate what we go with there. And to date, we're kind of following this project according to a phased approach. We're still in the demonstration and evaluation phase. We're getting ourselves organized to assess the feasibility of a large-scale deployment, but that phase is still to come. And further in the presentation, I'll provide more detail on these phases and the work that's being done and that's going to be required under those two phases. But I first want to dive into the why. So I mentioned that when getting in touch with our research groups within NRCan and other stakeholders, it was expressed to us that this type of high frequency electricity data is really valuable, valuable to support modeling initiatives and research. So the frequency of current data does not capture the dynamic nature of, of current data, yeah, does not capture the dynamic nature of electricity markets. I mean, yes, annual statistics are available and they allow us to observe like the overall evolution of the electricity system, whether shares of renewables are increasing on a year-by-year basis, observe trends in coal generation, natural gas as well. And yeah, monthly statistics are also available, and they provide more timely insights as well. In those monthly statistics, you can see seasonal patterns in generation, including like solar generation tends to increase over the summer. Wind generation might be slightly higher during wintertime. So monthly data is useful for some more timely and granular insights. But really, the electric system, it's more it's more dynamic than that. The interaction between baseload generation and variable renewables, demand side shifts, trade patterns, all of these types of flows and activities, they're really best observed at a higher frequency, because even within a 24-hour period, there's a lot going on that that monthly statistics just don't capture. So that's essentially why we're after this type of data. And again, researchers are after this type of data because it's fundamental to supporting modeling efforts dealing with electricity systems. So as well, the monthly statistics, the most timely data, they're on a national level from Statistics Canada, they're 3 months behind. And so I guess the timeliness, if we were to leverage real-time data, then we could improve on that kind of timeliness, and that would provide some benefits, including better situational awareness of the grid and having more up-to-date types of insights. And the last reason why we can kind of pursue this information is that it's available. This type of information, it's held by all provincial transmission system operators. They operate in a highly dynamic and digitized kind of way, and so in line with Statistics Canada's overall efforts to leveraging administrative data sources, reducing respondent burden, and overall efforts of modernization at Statistics Canada, unlocking this type of administrative data source makes a lot of sense as well. I'm just gonna have a sip of water here. So moving on to the next slide. And this is a bit of a continuation of the why, but I want to get more in depth on the details here. And actually forgive me, because I realize that this community is very well aware of the why, and I might be preaching to the choir, but if you can just bear with me, like maybe during the feedback session, if there's anything that's missing from these arguments, I'll really greatly appreciate the feedback, because we're going to be building the business case and identifying all the benefits. And so if there's anything that can be expanded on or that's missing, that's definitely the type of feedback that we're looking for. And it also can help me work on my sales pitch for when it will be time to try and get such a system in place. So anyways, yeah. So as I said, this type of information will support the work of policy experts and researchers, because the high frequency data provides that best view of the electrical system. It can enable the modeling of the impact of different types of programs, like demand response programs, energy efficiency programs, large scale integration of variable renewables and energy storage, the impact on the demand side of increased uptake of electric vehicles. It can also help get insights on best placement for interconnections for electricity trade between jurisdictions. So the strategic interties element, yeah. And it can enable assessment of grid reliability and resilience, and improve situational awareness by allowing for real-time monitoring. So for example, the US Energy Information Administration, which has implemented a system providing this type of information, they've provided an example of monitoring grid reaction and recovery in the wake of hurricanes. That could also be relevant to Canada, whether we're talking about hurricanes or ice storms or other types of impacts to the system. Also, hey, assessing the impact of a pandemic on energy consumption and deriving timely insights on those impacts. And actually, there was a really nice study that was published in August by Andrew Leach, Nick Rivers, and Blake Schaefer that did just that, leveraging this publicly available information from a handful of provinces to derive some really rich insights. It can also support international collaboration and facilitate a better understanding of interchange and trade in the grid. So actually, the first time I heard about this type of information was when Natural Resources Canada was working very closely with the US Energy Information Administration and Mexico on energy statistics under something called the North American Cooperation on Energy Information. We were working together to harmonize concepts, improve quality, foster data sharing and exchange of ideas. And part of the goal was also to meet policy objectives of presenting the energy system as being a North American integrated type of system. And the US Energy Information Administration was asking about the possibility for Canada to participate in their system that they were building. So there's that element of international cooperation. There's also, you know, other elements to this idea. For example, EIA, when they were trying to convince Hydro-Quebec to join their project, I believe they actually reached out to Hydro-Quebec directly, and they were using arguments saying like, yes, well, it's another way to market your electricity exports as being green, nice hydro electricity exports, helping meet needs in the US. The US Quadrennial Energy Review back in 2015 also leveraged this type of information, demonstrating hourly transmission between provincial and state connections, the flow, and obviously just assessing the transmission capacity to see the instance or frequency of flows reaching maximum transmission capacity. So like I mentioned earlier, assessing strategic interties, where to place those, this type of information can really help. And lastly, I do think that it can maybe help estimate more accurately the proportion of clean electricity exports. Statistics Canada currently has a program called the Environmental and Clean Technology Product Economic Account, which does provide information on renewable electricity exports. But given that an electron, once it's on the grid, it's hard to determine the source, and the HS customs trade data that we like to use also doesn't differentiate the source. What they've done is use provincial generation proportions and align that with annual trade, and they estimate the share of renewable electricity exports using that method. This high frequency data could enable a similar type of methodology, but linking those electricity exports on an hourly basis provides that higher granularity and would result in higher accuracy of accounting for those renewable electricity exports. Also, moving on to the transparency argument. So yes, it could reinforce transparency and public trust by informing Canadians about the state of the grid. There's actually a similar system in Europe, and this system was actually born out of something that they call the transparency regulation. It's called the ENTSO Transparency Platform, and I believe that part of the main objective for this platform is to, well, they publish a similar type of data, and the purpose is to serve market participants such as generators, retailers, and traders, and they're hoping to reduce insider trading and level the playing field between small and large actors. That's what I've found regarding that platform, but it's a similar platform, and anyways, so last but not least, this information, exists from some provinces. It doesn't exist for a lot of others, but even for the provinces in which it exists, if you want to access it, you have to go currently and piece it together yourselves, unless you have access to data aggregating services, which are pay for service. But really, the goal of this project would be to make this information publicly available and consolidated in one central location, eliminating the need for everybody to piece this together themselves. It would ensure that everybody's working from a common data set. It would facilitate coherence between modeling efforts and ensure coherence and comparability of results. So yeah, definitely another important project benefit there. I'm going to move on to the next slide. Potential applications, yeah. So researchers, again, can use this to validate and improve their models with recent data from across all of Canada. So I guess models that could benefit from this are like load and generation forecast models, unit commitment and dispatch models, control algorithms. Aggregators or other participants in flexibility markets can manage distributed energy resources to optimize revenues. And yeah, so like those are some general applications. A couple, just a couple recent examples are firstly something that CanMet Energy in Varennes has presented to us recently, and I believe Véronique might be presenting on this topic to the EMI if she hasn't already done so. But something very interesting that they've been doing is using, they've used data from Ontario and Alberta, the two provinces that make it the most detailed available information already, to estimate marginal emissions from marginal electricity demand on an hourly basis. So during a given day, the marginal unit of electricity that's demanded, what are the implications on on emissions, and obviously having that type of information, knowing when during the day the marginal emissions from that electricity demand are lowest, can have some really nice applications and implications on, for example, EV charging, like when's the best time to charge my EV in that case. Really interesting stuff. And I also already mentioned that that recent research that was published looking at the pandemic's impacts on electricity usage. Great study, which actually had a really well-developed section on data availability that I greatly appreciated. I really liked reading this paper because it was reflecting a lot of the things that we had noticed as well, that we had heard and are hoping and working towards addressing. So those are a couple of recent examples, but we're actually working right now on contracting out a more exhaustive literature survey. I understand that there's many studies that are being done that use this type of information. And so it'll be nice to have that in our back pocket when we look to move forward with this project. Okay, I'm looking at the time. I want to save time for the demo and feedback, so I'm going to move a bit more quickly here. Yeah, so I mentioned that we're currently in the demonstration and evaluation phase. So early on, you know, as you can see, we worked extensively to document the project benefits in support of our argument. So that's largely done. Looking forward to your feedback. We worked with the Canada Energy Regulator to see what's currently being published by all the different provinces and transmission system operators, Crown utilities, on a high frequency basis to actually feed into a prototype dashboard that we've developed. Well, sorry, that Canada Energy Regulator did a great job developing, something that we're really proud of. It's currently not available publicly, but it's a nice tangible product that we've been using to monitor electricity data and to leverage when developing our own insights. But we also can use it to demonstrate to management of what a broader national platform can look like. So Kevin will walk you through that very shortly. But first, I'm just going to also go over what we're currently working on. Let's see, where am I here? Yeah, so we're working with StatCan and CCEI to evaluate what will be required to put something that's a bit broader, not only leveraging publicly available data, but assessing the feasibility of collecting this information in a more consistent and automated basis from all the different provinces. And so to do that, we've kind of built a survey frame. We're moving forward with engagement of provincial territorial utilities and transmission system operators, and they're working on an assessment of the technical and financial requirements for a larger scale program. But that larger scale program is really just, it's a phase 2 type of thing. And it's currently still just a vision and an ambition. A funding decision hasn't been made for this, but really the more that we can do to demonstrate the value of this information, the better our argument will be. But really the vision is to have a national statistical program that collects consistent high frequency data, disseminates it publicly through an accessible database that's easy to access, that's consistent, and ideally would include data from all provincial and territorial system operators or utilities. Before we can do that, we need to build a business case that leverages all of the benefits that we've talked about, but also assesses the costs of putting such a system in place. We need to evaluate the data collection mechanisms, and we need to consider response burden. So I mentioned that this information exists, but it's very likely and possible that implementing a system to efficiently transfer this data to StatCan to collect it might be difficult. But it would provide an advantage of being consistent. We also need to identify what the ideal data timeliness is, and to do that, I guess we do need to consider that some of this information is commercially sensitive. Some operators might not be willing to provide timely, real-time generation estimates. Something that the US has done is that they release this information, I believe, 24 hours after the fact. They've decided that doing so removes that commercial sensitivity of the information. So that's something that we also will need to consider. But that's really the vision. That's what we're looking to build out to. And given the progress that's been made through our phase 1 demonstration and evaluation, we're hoping to be able to move towards a phase 2 type of thing. We'll be evaluating it this year with potential implementation in the future. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kevin for the demonstration of the demonstration dashboard that we've built.
So first of all, I want to say it's very nice to be here today because I was part of one of the EMI meetings last year in Montreal.
Excuse me, Kevin, we don't hear you very well.
Oh, I'll try to speak louder. Is it better like this?
Not very much.
I'll just do my best to speak as loud as I can.
Oh, that's better now.
And I got Simon's thumbs up, so I'll go with that. So today I'm going to spend a few minutes to tell you a little bit about the dashboard that we created and the context behind it. And as Simon mentioned,
it's very hard to hear, Kevin.
Yeah. There's some sort of, yeah.
There's kind of a...
Okay. I don't know why. That's weird. That never happened before, but I'll just be as close as possible.
Yeah, but otherwise you can close the application and restart it. Maybe I know we're losing a few seconds, but the sound might be better.
It was seeming a bit more clear in the last couple sentences you just said. Maybe you got a bit closer to your computer. I don't know.
Okay, what about now?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I got some comments that it's not that great, but I'll just do my best. Sorry guys about that sound issue. So the as Simon mentioned, we used a dual approach to this initiative, and the first phase really was to build the inception of this dashboard that I'm going to show you. And the first step was to find all of the publicly available data and to scrape it. So we use Python, the coding language, to scrape directly from the websites on a real-time basis and put all of that data into the internal database. And with that data, we created this dashboard using iCharts that some of you guys may be aware of. It's an interactive charting library. And this is what it looks like. This is the pilot, the prototype. And we basically compiled all of the data we possess for all of the provinces. And I'm going to show you 3 examples. The first one being for British Columbia about the real-time electricity load. And the users can just scroll through like this and look at the numbers throughout the day. And it goes up to the latest available data. And I won't go through all of it, especially with all the liveness and issues. I don't want to mess it up. But here's another example about Alberta. Here you can see the day ahead forecasted and actual internal load. That is something we scrape directly from the website. And it is in real time. And one last one will be the Nova Scotia trade flows. It shows all of the flows coming from Nova Scotia and going into Nova Scotia by region, by source. And once again, it's all in real time. So this, as Simon mentioned, is really the purpose of this dashboard was to build the case and show what could be done with this initiative. Currently, we still have some issues with it, and one of them is that the code that we use, we rely on a virtual machine that runs the code every 2 minutes or 5 minutes or every hour, depending on the specific data set that we're using. And that virtual machine is prone to having data updates, or whenever there's a server update or data updates, that just logs off automatically, and we have to reboot it manually. And also, whenever there are changes into the data provider's website, we have the same issue where we need to rerun the code again and we need to update it. So basically, this is a good short-term solution, but this is not a good, elegant, sustainable one, because it's prone to stopping at specific points and we need in time, and we need to update it or to rerun it ourselves manually again. And to solve that problem, we are currently looking into using cloud-based solutions to be able to circumvent the need of a virtual machine that creates the loop and be able to really have it in real time and for it to be sustainable. And overall, this is the short-term solution. But what we want eventually, our big dream, is to be able to get that data directly from the data providers in a uniform manner, so that we don't need to scrape their website to get that data. And that is basically what Simon has been saying. And that is pretty much it. And in terms of next steps, the reason why we're here today is really to showcase what we've done so far, but also as Simon mentioned, we want to have your thoughts, have your feedback, and also we want to hear about your wildest dreams when it comes to getting real-time electricity data, so that we can see if it's doable and to get the ball rolling with this initiative. So right now we're going to open it up to having your questions and feedback.
Well, thank you. We had a bit of a audio issue, but at least we had the image to see a bit what was happening there. So if there are some questions, please raise your hand or type them into the chat box. I would like to start with a question. Maybe right now what is the plan to have data at a more granular level than just a provincial one? Because right now I do believe that they're only available at the provincial level, correct?
Yeah, so it depends on what the decision will be for collection, and also what we decide to leverage directly from what's being made publicly available. For example, we know that the Ontario, the IESO, makes some regional demand data currently available through their website, and we could potentially either scrape it or maybe include it as part of this more formalized data collection process, and that's still to be evaluated. We're going to be, again, it's always this balance of wanting to ensure consistency between the data that we collect across all provinces, but also we may want to consider leveraging what provinces are already making available publicly to reduce that burden of compliance. And so I would imagine that getting the information from Ontario would be easy since it's already made available publicly. if we hear from the community that this type of information is key in modeling efforts and supporting their work, then we could consider that as being part of the formal ask in terms of what all provinces would be asked to provide.
Okay, thanks. One question here from one of the participants. When might this portal be made available to the public?
That's a good question. So I mentioned that the CCEI is looking at this. Part of the CCEI's objectives and role is for a better integration of data coming from many different sources, not just Statistics Canada, but provincial data sources and other federal departments. And so they are assessing right now the inclusion of high frequency electricity data on the CCEI portal. They're also looking at all the code that Kevin has developed for the automatic scraping and databasing of the information, and in the background, working with it, seeing what might be possible. There's currently no timeline or firm plan to make this available publicly, but that's our goal.
But even if the portal would be populated with, let's say, generic data, just at least that we could see how what's the interface like and what kind of data would be available and how we can play with that, and just so that we can use. I do understand the question of the concern of having consistent data, but at least just showing the interface so you could get like earlier feedback on what kind of info we can get from it and what we can do with it. That I think that would be interesting to say that, well, those are not real data, or they're obfuscated, or whatever you want to do with them, but at least make them available so that we see the portal, right? Yeah. Because the link you were using, Kevin, that's not available that's not publicly available, correct?
Hopefully you guys can hear me better.
Yes.
Oh, awesome. All of the links we used, I'm used to speaking very loud again, I'll speak lower. Everything we use is publicly available. So we went straight to the websites, and everything you see, you can get it yourself. With the only caveat that sometimes for provinces outside of Ontario and Alberta, they just have the current number for, let's say, load, and that number gets updated every few minutes or so. And on their website, they do not necessarily provide that the time series related to that metric. So with our scraping, we were able to append the instantaneous data, so you wouldn't be able to get the time series that we do have.
Okay. So could you post the URL in the chat, so to make it available for everyone if people want to go look at it?
For which?
Or for the portal you were showing.
For all the URLs?
Yeah, all the URL for the portal that you demoed.
Oh, so we cannot share the dashboard.
So it's not available.
The data is, but not the dashboard.
Okay, I was interested in seeing the dashboard. Okay, a bit more technical question here about the load data. Is it are you displaying or using the recorded load, or the generation? You're using the generation data. So in that case, if you're using generation data, then you're you're not considering or adding the losses, transmission losses. So where are you taking the data for the load? Is it generation or actual load demand?
So for British Columbia, we use load, and I'll share the link in the
telemetered load. Correct. Yeah. Okay, but that's not the case in every province, I would assume, right?
Yeah. So that's one of the issues. There is a quite significant amount of heterogeneity with the type of data we get from provinces. I think in Alberta, they provide net losses in some instances, but in others they don't. So this is one of the findings that we got, that there is no standardization of the data that is available.
I guess for the next set of questions, the answer should be should have the same argument as answer. It's all about granularity, spatial granularity of the data lumped at the provincial level. Is it at various authority finer? Could you go as low as a specific plant or a specific unit? Again, I guess it would depend.
So whatever we could get, we got. I think it's in Alberta that we have plant-specific data. And is it in Ontario that we have regional demand? And when that was available, we scraped it and we put it. I didn't show it in this this specific presentation, but it's part of the dashboard. So it's really dependent on the data we could get.
And Simon, you said something about in your presentation about doing some load forecasting with that system. So what would be the which data would you use, or how would you produce those load forecasting using that system?
Well, given that the utilities and transmission system operators are likely doing their own forecasting, we may consider just collecting from them what they have, and some of them already make it publicly available. I believe that's the approach taken in the US, and so I'm not sure that there was necessarily any plans to integrate such forecasting to the platform, but primarily requesting that information directly from the providers.
Okay, thank you. There's one question here about the reporting process that well, maybe Jason, Mr. Wong, you can ask your question, or better rephrase it for the audience if you want.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks. Yeah, so my question is basically just what I guess what sets of actions will this project try to take to make sure that data is like standardized and clean and reported regularly from all the provinces?
Sure. Yeah. So under that broader kind of more ambitious initiative under phase 2, where we would ideally put a system in place to collect this information from all the provinces, there would be a lot of work involved in, providing clear definitions to respondents in terms of defining what it is, like when we're referring to load, when we're referring to generation, what's to be provided. Also, providing templates in which to provide the data. Kind of like the types of statistical activities that StatCan would undertake when developing a survey. They develop associated reporting guides and all of that to ensure that the concepts and definitions are really clear for respondents. And so that would also need to be done for this, even though it's not necessarily a survey, it's more of an admin data source. We'd have to do the same type of work there. And then I think, Jason, you had another question in the chat thread, maybe related, but in terms of voluntary participation and how would we ensure compliance? I guess compliance with the concepts, but also compliance with reporting. Ideally, we'd be able to communicate the positive aspects of participating in such a platform with the potential respondents, and that they'd be forthcoming with the information and would be wanting to participate. There's possibility that they wouldn't be so forthcoming. And so that is a challenge that we anticipate having. And at that point, it remains to be seen what can be done there. I mean, the Statistics Act does exist, the Energy Monitoring Act does exist, but we would prefer to rely on the carrot rather than the stick. But that's to be decided, really. I see more questions coming in here.
Yeah. One more question. Thomas D'Andres, you have a question. Could you go with and ask it, please?
Oh yeah, sure. Actually, it's not a question, more comment about the potential user of this platform. It's IEEE is preparing standards. Actually, one is already available. It's to calculate your emission based on your own consumption and using time-dependent emission factors. So, because actually, if you follow the GHG protocol and other guidelines to calculate your carbon footprint, you will use annual emission factor that is not accurate, especially if you have a time-dependent power demand. So I suppose that the people that use that standard in Canada would be very happy to access the platform. And another standard is coming about managing the upcoming power demand. So the idea is to calculate the anticipated marginal emission factor for the next hours to then be able to advise the consumer to plan its its electricity consumption. So similarly, it could be useful.
I'll just add thank you, Thomas, for this comment. And I think that's one of the reasons we're very excited about this project, because yes, it's cool to have real-time data, it's fancy, but most of all, it's supposed to help with decision-making, both on the political level and at the individual level sometimes. So if that project succeeds and moves forward, this is exactly the type of initiative or tools that we hope we can bonify with more real-time data.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
So there's a question here about where should you, is there a way to provide you our comments and consideration, or comments and requirements, let's say? How do we submit that to you? Can you provide us a
yes, by all means. Please, yeah. So you can reach me by email. My email is, it's my name, it's simon.prefontaine@canada.ca. And if you want to include Kevin as well, or Kevin.Caron @
yeah. Okay, maybe you can just type them. Okay, they're there in the chat box. You can get them there.
Oh, good.
Okay, so
perfect.
Kevin just typed them. Thank you, Kevin. Two questions about who did you approach in terms of which system operators have you approached so far, and also have you worked with provincial energy regulators to get more information?
Yeah, good question. So the engagement is forthcoming. It's quite soon, actually. We were wondering if we were going to get our initial letter to our proposed respondents before this presentation. Turns out it's going to be a bit after, but that's okay. But really, it's a letter designed to announce our interest in this kind of information, seeking feedback on whether how they anticipate their ability to participate in this will be, identifying that it's not something that anyway. And so really, like, who are we reaching out to? Again, it's depends on a province by province basis, but really. Alberta and Ontario, it's the system operators, IESO, AESO, and then depending on the province, whether it's a fully integrated Crown Corporation utility, like Hydro-Québec, or but it varies on a province by province basis. But generally, it's whoever's responsible for the transmission across the grid in each provincial system. And good point on Canadian Electricity Association. That is a group that we will have to reach out to. It would probably be a good idea to do that.
Thank you. And I skipped over two questions related to real-time or real-timeness of the data. So saying that since you're scraping data from public sources, but you cannot consider it real time per se. And is there any plan to have like a real time APIs to make the data as real time as possible?
Yeah, I can take this one. What we mean by real time is that it's quasi real time. For most of the provinces, we get data every 2 minutes or every 5 minutes, sometimes every hour. So relatively speaking, compared to the 3 months or 1 year type of releases, this one is quite real time. So as granular and as timely as we could get, we did. And that is what we need.
All right, thank you. So we still have two, 3 more minutes. So if you have any more, if you do have some more comments or questions, please either raise your hand, open your mic, and please go. Well, if there's,
I guess maybe one. So how much effort? I mean, to get all this together. I mean, do you think that it's a full-time project for the two of you for the next year, or do you hope that it will come up faster and or with less effort?
So I think Kevin has already done a whole lot of heavy lifting in terms of developing scripts that go and collect what's publicly available. Going forward, that's the question that we're looking to evaluate. Really, is what is the commitment in terms of people, bodies, and the cost to put this in place. So before we really jump in and make this kind of like a long-standing type of system, it's what we need to consider.
And I'll add to that we really want to make sure that we take the time to make things right. We want to make sure that we have all the parameters. We want to make sure that we don't just go at provinces and say, hey, give us all the data you want. We want to be mindful of the risks for them and for us. So it's going to be a collaborative, years-long effort for us to develop the plan and reach out to the appropriate stakeholders. And I'll also mention that it's not just Simon and I. There's so many people who were involved and so many people who are motivated and believe in this project. At NRCan, at CEA, where I work, at StatsCan as well. So it's really bigger than just the two of us.
Well, that's good to know, because I'm quite sure that you need more people to work on that than just the two of you. And hopefully we'll see next year the progress that you will have done on that most needed project. And on that note, I will thank you, everyone, and we'll say stay safe. Thank you for joining us.
Merci.
Stay safe and see you soon. Merci.
Merci.
Au revoir.
Bye.